The Washington Wizards have stumbled out of the gate to begin their 2021 season, and even that has been generous. They've gone 0-5 to begin the year, losing in some appalling fashion to teams considered as some of the worst in the league, whilst they themselves were viewed as almost a playoff lock coming into the season. So what happened? Why are the Wizards so bad? And how do they fix these problems? I'll be going over that in today's video. Before we start, if you're new here and enjoy the video, be sure to subscribe for more NBA content like this. I'm trying to reach 16,000 subscribers by the end of January, so all support would be greatly appreciated. Anyway, with that being said, let's talk about the Washington Wizards. The Wizards have been a lot worse than we expected. The team has still failed to win a single game after 5 matches, but that hasn't meant they weren't close to winning. They've just struggled time and time again to close out games. In their opening game, they fought back against the 76ers but fell short at the final buzzer, losing by 6. They'd then lose grip on the Magic after a tight first half, and then in their following match against Orlando, blow a near 20-point lead to lose yet again. Washington has since come across the Chicago Bulls twice, one of the worst teams in the league currently, and still, again and again, they've failed to close out a game and ended up losing grasp on the match down the stretch. None of these 5 losses have been blowouts, all 10 points or less, but they still sting a lot and it's starting to have some implications on the team. There's some clear issues. Before I get into the reasons why the Wizards have struggled early on, I have to make it clear that, for the most part, this isn't the fault of Russell Westbrook or Bradley Beal. These guys aren't solely to blame for this horrific beginning, and I honestly have to say these guys are the least to blame out of anyone on the roster. Sure, the two haven't gelled together as well as expected, but these players are doing everything possible for their team to win. They virtually carry the squad throughout stretches and games. So before I get into the issues with the Wizards, I did want to point out that Russ and Beal, for the most part, are fine. They aren't the problem with this team and don't need to be irrationally traded. So, what are the problems with this team? What's gone wrong? By far the biggest problem the Wizards have is its defense. There are almost 0 players on this team who can consistently play above average defense, and it tells with the scoreline of their games. They haven't been able to hold any team under 110 points this season and have had 130 or more dropped on their heads twice. Defense was also a significant problem for them last season, so the fact it still is very disappointing. The reason why it still is a problem is because the front office failed to make any substantial moves in the offseason to improve it. The biggest defensive addition they made was Robin Lopez, who yes, is a solid defender, but he's also well out of his prime, on the verge of retirement, and is barely passable as a positive on offense. He plays 16 minutes a game, and for him to be your biggest weapon defensively is a big red flag. The only way I see this improving this year is if significant deals are made at the trade deadline. It must be a major priority for the franchise. I'm not sure who they could bring in, but I'd like to see a starter level big man or wing defender be traded in to help the squad, even if it means losing a guy like Rui Hachimura. The Wizards clearly do not want to rebuild. They're trying to be a good playoff side with a star duo of Westbrook and Beal, but with 0 defense around them, it's hard to see that happening, and the effects are already occurring right now. Basically, the Wizards' defense is atrocious right now, and to fix it, they'll need to make some trades. Offensively, this team can hold their own, but they get absolutely slaughtered on the other side of the court. And it's why a mediocre team like Chicago was able to score 133 points on them last night, and in turn, beat them. So yeah, this is a big reason why the Wizards are off to a horrible beginning in 2021. The second issue I've noticed with the Wizards is the coaching from Scott Brooks. Brooks hasn't been good so far this season, making a lot of poor rotation decisions and a lack of adjustments mainly. I get this is a new team and he hasn't had a lot of time to find the perfect rotation with Russell Westbrook on it now, so maybe he's still experimenting, but he's been making a lot of questionable decisions during games. Sometimes he runs 3 or 4 guard lineups involving guys like Neto, Ish Smith, Westbrook and Beal, and those are just awful defensively. So not only is he struggling to make correct decisions on who to play when, but he's contributing heavily to the biggest problem with this team, defense. I think it's fairly well known Scott Brooks isn't a great coach by any means, but when Russ reunited with him, he got an unnecessary amount of hype/praise. People acted like him and Westbrook are some iconic duo, and them back together will allow for the Wizards to rise to the top of the East again. But that obviously hasn't happened at all. Basically here, Brooks' lack of adjustments and terrible lineups he's thrown onto the court for the Wizards has been costly for them, and it's negatively affected them in many ways. Again, he hasn't had a lot of experience with some of the players on this team, but he's got to figure things out ASAP. It's killing the Wizards' ability to win games. Overall, these are my thoughts on the Washington Wizards and what's gone wrong. Firstly, before we all point the finger at Russ and Beal, I think we should make it clear they're doing mostly positive things on the court. Yes, Westbrook could improve defensively, same with Beal. But these guys literally carry this mediocre team through the mud sometimes and keep them in games, so I think we should leave them out of the blame game for the most part. From watching footage, the biggest problem by far I can see is their defense. It was bad last season and it still is now, so that needs to change ASAP. They need to bring some better defensive guys in. And finally, Scott Brooks needs to fix things quick smart or he will lose his job, because the lineups he's currently running are extremely questionable and are a reason why we see the Wizards struggling defensively. The Wizards have an incredibly tough schedule ahead. The Timberwolves, Nets, 76ers, Celtics and Heat are their next 5 games, so who knows when we'll see them get a number in the win column. What I do know is that the front office has a lot of things to consider over the ensuing weeks, because their team is shaping up to be the biggest disappointment of the 2021 season, and they may have a year that will leave considerable stains on their superstar players' legacies. And that will conclude the video. What do you guys think of this? What's happened to the Washington Wizards in your opinion? What needs to change for them to start winning games? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop it a like and subscribe. But with that being said, I am out. Peace.